Now at 6, this is Fox 61, Connecticut's news station.
Good evening and thanks for joining us for the Fox 61 News at 6. I'm Brent Harden.
And I'm Bridget Bjorlo. New tonight, a difficult day in Middletown as the community comes together to grieve 4 lives lost, including a teacher and a student.
Paul Pelletier and Delilah Van Ness were killed in a plane crash along with Delilah's mother and an 88-year-old military veteran. Today, Fox 61's Matt Karen learned more about their lives and legacies.
Well, the Middletown Public Library is no stranger to sharing stories, but today that story wasn't in a book. It was real life as the students who organized a remembrance vigil here shared the stories they'll remember most about Paul and Delilah. Middletown High School was closed Tuesday.
It just doesn't feel real. Like, I never could have imagined that this would happen.
So students like Annabelle DeWitt could grieve, gathering at the Russell Library. She says the halls at Middletown High ring hollow with the absence of loss.
Everybody's definitely feeling sad, and they're definitely feeling the loss.
Recalling her friend Delilah and her infectious personality.
She was amazing. She was wonderful, so kind, intelligent. She was honestly a perfect friend.
15-year-old sophomore Delilah Van Ness and her aerospace teacher, 55-year-old Paul Pelletier, died Sunday when Paul's small single-engine Piper plane crashed in Vermont en route back to Connecticut. Fox 61 met them both in June for a story about Middletown's drone training program. Student and teacher in title, but a bond beyond the classroom.
She wanted to become a pilot, and Paul gave her the opportunity. Pilot saw her as a daughter.
Luis Revilla worked with Paul. They were just days away from revealing a series of videos on drone safety, about to be published by the FAA. Now he can't stomach going back to the office.
His chair is still there, his stuff is still there, so it's gonna be like going to a house without a family member. Last week at the office, and when we said goodbye, he told me, I love you. And I said, I love you too, Paul, and we gave a hug.
Also killed in that plane crash was Delilah's mother, Susan Van Ness, who worked for the National Diaper Bank Network, and Paul's friend, 88-year-old Francisco Frank Rodriguez, a veteran, whose nickname was his military call sign, Speedy. Frank was a Lebanon resident, himself a pilot and member of the Super Sabre Society, dedicated to preserving the history of the men who flew the F-100 jet fighter.
He was a very close friend to Paul. They were very, very friends. I know that they used to fly together very often, and he was a great friend of the Middletown Aerospace program.
And at the same time as this community grieves, investigators from the FAA and NTSB are conducting a full-scale investigation to determine the cause of that plane crash. A preliminary report will be issued by the NTSB within the next 30 days, but a full investigation could take up to 2 years. Reporting in Middletown, Matt Karen, Fox 61, Connecticut's news station.
All right, Matt, thank you. Let's get a check on the forecast. It was another day of sunshine out there.
Yeah, Chief Meteorologist Rachel Frank joining us now. Rach, it's the bright sunshine, the crystal blue sky, the leaves just beginning to get a little color, the temperature just right. I just think this is spectacular weather.
It is a really great time of year, and it does feel a little bit like early fall, especially in the mornings. But as we head through the end of the week, we're going to be going back into summer mode with highs that will climb well into the 80s. But we're going to do that with those blue skies that we know and love so well. We dealt with them last week, and we're right back at it again this week. 75 in Hartford, upper 70s for the New Haven area. There is not a single cloud that I can show you on either one of these cameras. It is so nice. 71 currently in Waterbury and upper 60s in Torrington. And I'm showing you the satellite and radar for fun, but clearly you could see just by looking out your window that there's nothing to show you. Tonight will be cooler. We're looking at overnight lows in the 40s across most of the state. Closer to the beaches, we'll get closer to the 50-degree mark, but still, it's that time of year when you can get those really cool starts and then a huge rebound by afternoon. We climb about 30 degrees from morning to afternoon, with highs climbing between 75 to near 80 degrees. We're going to see very similar temperatures heading through Thursday, but it's Friday into this upcoming weekend that you really notice those warmer temperatures. And if the pool's still open, you're going to be taking a dip this weekend. We'll talk about it. Your full forecast coming up.
All right, Rachel, thank you. We are just learning the name now of the woman found dead in the Quinnipiac River this morning. When pulled out of the water, she had no identification on her, but detectives were able to identify her as Shannon Arrington, a 37-year-old woman who lived in New Haven. Her body was found near the Ferry Street Bridge. The cause of death has not yet been released, and we will update you as an autopsy is performed and the investigation continues.
New at 6, the National Transportation Safety Board releasing new details in the Florida crash that killed 9 people with ties to Bridgeport. The report says an SUV went off a highway in Belglade, Florida last month while going off a curve. The SUV then hit a guardrail and rolled over straight into a canal. This new photo shows what the car looked like as crews started investigating. The driver and 8 passengers, including 6 children under the age of 15, were all killed. We're told all 9 victims were related to an employee of the Bridgeport School District. 1 adult passenger survived the crash. The report says the driver and the front passenger were wearing seatbelts.
The owner of a dog training and boarding facility in Haddam is facing animal cruelty charges after a French bulldog allegedly died in her care. An arrest warrant says the dog was being boarded at Wagging Good, run by Jacqueline Witt, when it died. A necropsy report found the dog was not being fed and had heat stroke. According to the warrant, Witt did not notify the dog's owners and continued to send updates of its progress even after dumping the dog's body along Canterbury Turnpike. Other clients also reported picking up their dogs to find them in bad condition. Witt was released on $50,000 bond and is due in court later this month.
New England wants to create its own energy offshore, but as our neighboring states are taking steps forward, Connecticut seems to be dragging its feet on this.
Fox 61 political reporter Emma Wolfhorst is with us in studio now to explain. Emma.
Brent, Bridget, today Governor Ned Lamont joined the 4 other New England governors and multiple Canadian officials in Boston for their 45th annual energy meeting. The big question, should Connecticut invest in offshore energy now at a time when the state's utility bills are skyrocketing?
The region is more than shared geography and shared resources. It truly is a family.
New England coming together frustrated. The federal government isn't doing more to help energy costs at the source.
This is about building strong economies, creating great jobs and new businesses, carving out our energy independence, and combating climate change.
One of those strategies, offshore wind, something the coastline especially can take advantage of.
We announced last week with the great state of Rhode Island that we were in for a significant procurement, 3 major projects altogether.
Connecticut and other states have multiple companies bidding for offshore wind projects. Massachusetts and Rhode Island recently agreed to buy more than 2,800 megawatts of offshore wind power from the 3 proposed wind farms, the largest offshore wind selection in the history of New England. Officials say it could generate enough energy to power 1.4 million homes. Connecticut has agreed to buy some of the energy generated by the Revolution Wind project, which is building turbines at the State Pier in New London. But the state was expected to split the cost and also pick up the rest of the procurements from those other 2 projects. After a heated summer of complicated and costly utility bills, though, state officials have gone quiet. Now, one of the offshore wind companies says it can't move forward without Connecticut's buy-in. Vineyard Offshore CEO Alicia Barton said, "We look forward to Connecticut's forthcoming decision on the remainder of the procurement so that we can begin to deliver important economic and climate benefits to the region." While the pushback has been to wait on expensive green investments, these wind projects, once started, take years to complete, meaning if states don't pay now, it will take even longer for residents to see any sort of energy stability or savings.
For families at their tables, they know this set of leaders is thinking about those problems and tackling them on their behalf.
I did reach out to Governor Ned Lamont's office, but have not heard back. And all this comes as state Republicans are still calling for a special session and asking the Lamont administration to limit all future power purchase agreements. Bridget, Brent.
All right, Emma, thank you. A nuclear power plant in Connecticut wants to close 3 of its storage units. The electricity generated at Millstone Power Plant is part of those public benefit fees adding up on your utility bill. The plant wants to close some of its units in Waterford, and if they close those units, it would cut down their operating costs. The hazardous waste would be moved to a different facility. The plant's parent company, Dominion Energy, needs state approval first. DEEP is taking public input through the end of the month.
Today is World Suicide Prevention Day, dedicated to raising awareness about what's become a public health crisis. So far this year in Connecticut, 9 young people have died from suicide. That's already up from last year. I spoke with a mother named Ann Daigle who knows the pain of losing a child firsthand. Her teenage son Brian took his life 13 years ago, and since his passing, Ann's made it her mission to save lives.
It was a nightmare. You know, I call it a tsunami hit us, our whole family, our whole community, everyone. And, you know, I look back and I wonder how we survived it.
It's a loss Ann Daigle never saw coming.
We lost Brian in 2011 to suicide.
Her son Brian, a sophomore college student studying to be a teacher in Vermont, when he took his own life.
When I look back, there were warning signs, but we didn't know back then that there were warning signs. He had lost a lot of weight. He was isolating a little bit from his friends here at home.
Now, Ann recognizes those shifts in behavior as cries for help. It's what she teaches other parents to look out for through a nonprofit she founded in Brian's memory, the Brian Daigle Foundation.
One of the most important things we can do is normalize the conversation. Talk about our mental health just like we talk about our physical health.
She says doing just that can save a life. At a time when nearly twice the number of Americans die by suicide than homicides each year, mental health experts agree that checking in on those you love can go a long way.
Sometimes when you just ask that question, is everything okay? It's too global, it's too vague. So we try to say, how are you today? And ask those sometimes uncomfortable questions, but it's better to ask now than to not be able to ask later.
And while Ann can't bring her son back, she honors Brian every day by helping others.
We're in a club that no one wants to be in.
Turning pain into purpose as she supports grieving families like hers.
I sit with people all the time who are in the exact place that I was, and they're in the worst pain that they will ever experience in their life, but somehow, some way, they will get through it.
One day at a time. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention says in 2022, men died by suicide nearly 4 times the rate of women, with white men accounting for 68% of all suicide deaths. If you or someone you know needs support, call or text the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It's 988. Again, you can call or text it. And if you and your family need help finding and affording mental health care, Connecticut has a phone line set up to connect you with the right services. All you need to do is dial this number, 211.
There are resources available.
You got to ask for help, though.